Hey guys! Tonight we begin with the extraordinary life of a warrior woman, not a queen, not a myth, but a Viking Shieldmaiden. Fierce, battle-hardened, and feared by enemies across the North Sea. She was the embodiment of Norse grit and feminine power. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. You enter the world in the dead of winter, because of course you do. The fires are barely lit, the midwife's drunk on honeymead, and the longhouse smells like smoke-wet fur and boiled cabbage. You don't cry, you roar. The midwife flinches. Your father, who's seen 3 raids and 1 troll or so, he claims, looks at you and mutters, "She's going to be trouble." The rest of the village nods like this is a diagnosis. You're a girl, which means your life is already a gamble. You're either going to die young, get married off, or if you're lucky and just scary enough, you'll skip all that and earn the title that most girls only hear about in Saga's Shieldmaiden. Your crib is a reused goat trough. You share it with a wool scrap, a carved owl, and possibly a spider named Hilda, who refuses to move out. There are no lullabies, just loud men snoring, and someone sharpening an axe in the corner. Every few minutes, a hound walks by and licks your forehead. This is the Viking version of a baby monitor. Your family consists of 2 brothers who already smell like war, a grandmother who talks to ghosts, and an aunt who's been married 3 times, all to men who mysteriously died during training accidents. You're the 4th girl born this year, and the only one who didn't arrive screaming. You arrived glaring. Your name is chosen based on 2 things: how loud you were, and which ancestor hasn't had a baby named after them in a while. You end up with something like Freydis or Brynhild, which translates loosely to, "May the gods have mercy on anyone who insults her." You survive your first night, which is more than many can say. The fire keeps you warm. The milk is fresh. The lice arrive promptly. By the end of the week, the village is already calling you the loud one. Someone carves you a wooden dagger for teething. You don't chew on it. You practice your grip. You're 2 years old, teething and dangerously mobile. The world is your battlefield, and your first weapon is a sheep bone. Viking childhood is not gentle. There are no plush toys, no pacifiers, no safety rails. What you get is whatever didn't make it into the stew pot. Your favorite toy is a carved wooden horse with 1 leg missing and bite marks from 3 cousins. You also have a ball made of pig bladder and a stick, which you use interchangeably as a wand, sword, and disciplinary tool on anything smaller than you. Your playground is the mud outside the longhouse, which you share with livestock and future trauma. There is no such thing as childproof. Everything is sharp, flammable, or edible, and sometimes all three. You once swallowed a fish hook. The village cheered when it came back out. Games are simple and brutal. Catch the chicken ends in scratches. Who can throw the rock furthest ends in bruises? Raid the neighbor's firewood pile ends in social tension. Your favorite game is ambush your cousin, which ends when someone cries and an elder yells, "Thor's beard, not again." You learn social rules fast. Share food, but only after you've licked it. Never touch someone's comb, and always give the chieftain's dog the first bite, or it will take it anyway. Formal education. Not exactly. You learn what you see. You see your mother grinding grain and patching clothes. You see your father cleaning weapons and arguing about taxes paid in fish. You see your older siblings fighting with sticks and trying to impress each other by lifting goats. You try that too. It ends poorly. By age 4, you can start a fire, skin a rabbit, and recognize when adults are lying to you. You have a talent for sneaking and stealing honey cakes. You're caught regularly. It builds character. Some children are quiet and obedient. You're not one of those. You get dirt in your hair, blood on your tunic, and pride in your little chest. Your grandmother pats your head and says, "She's got the look of someone who will grow up to terrify men." You don't understand yet, but you like how it sounds. You are 5 years old, and you've learned 2 important things. Fire is life, and everything else is wood and freezing. Your education begins early, not in a classroom, but in the cold, hard reality of village life. Forget chalkboards and reading circles. Your first lesson is don't fall in the fjord. The second is if it's steaming, don't touch it. You fail both. The concept of school does not exist. Instead, you're educated through the classic Norse curriculum: observation, repetition, and being yelled at by exhausted adults holding sharp tools. Math, that's counting sheep and spoons. If you lose either, you get a hands-on lesson in consequences. Reading. You're shown runes carved into stone and told that means death. You nod and memorize it. Vocabulary grows fast. When half the words mean hit, bleed, or run. Your mother teaches you how to grind grain without losing fingers. Your father teaches you how to hold a blade without looking like you're going to cry. Your uncle teaches you how to gut a fish, and your aunt teaches you how to gut a man. Theoretically, no one uses baby talk. Adults speak in normal voices, even when you don't understand half of what they're saying. You learn fast. or you get left behind both physically and socially. There are songs, yes, but most are about blood feuds or dying gloriously in battle. You hum them while doing chores. Your lullaby is a cigarette about a warrior getting his ribs pulled out through his back. It's weirdly soothing. By age 6, you know how to sharpen a blade, tie a knot, and tell when the goats are acting like there's a storm coming. You also know how to lie with confidence, sneak extra berries, and throw a rock with tactical precision. You're not being raised. You're being forged like a sword in fire by people who haven't smiled since last solstice. And yet there's pride. When you get something right, no one claps. They just grunt, nod, and let you do it again, this time with slightly less supervision. You're not a child in the modern sense. You're just a very small adult with fewer responsibilities and slightly more snot. Puberty arrives like a bad omen, unannounced, inconvenient, and completely uninterested in your feelings. You wake up one morning slightly taller, slightly smellier, and filled with a rage you can't explain. Your voice stays the same, but your insults hit harder. Your face decides to grow more oil than a lantern, and your sweat could knock out a wild boar. At 20 paces, welcome to Viking adolescence. You now bleed monthly. No one gives you a pamphlet or a talk. Your mother hands you a scrap of wool and says, "Get on with it." You do because you have no choice, and she's already gone back to skinning a rabbit. Your body is changing, but your chores are not. You still haul water, chop wood, clean fish, and wrestle goats that hate you on a personal level. You don't like them, but you respect their stubbornness. They return the favor by screaming at 300 a.m. Your training intensifies. You no longer spar with wooden sticks. You use real blades, dull ones at first. Not because they don't want you to get hurt, but because they don't want to replace you yet. You are encouraged to hit harder, move faster, and never ever cry, unless it's from blood loss or joy. You're expected to fight the boys as equals, and when you beat them, you're told not to brag. You do anyway quietly to the goats. Socially, things are weirder. Some girls start plaiting their hair with care and flirting with boys. You braid your hair so it doesn't get in your eyes during battle drills. When boys flirt with you, you ask if they can spar. Most back away slowly. A few try. Fewer try twice. Your evenings are spent cleaning weapons, eating stew, and trying not to think too hard about your future. You don't dream of weddings or silk tunics. You dream of standing in a shield wall, shoulder to shoulder with warriors who don't ask if you're sure you're strong enough. You haven't earned your place yet, but you're close. And when you catch your reflection in the blacksmith's shield, eyes fierce, hair wild, arms bruised, you don't see a girl anymore. You see a threat. You turn 12, which in Viking years means you're now considered almost an adult and just old enough to ruin your own life with steel. On your birthday, your father hands you a gift. It's long, wrapped in cloth, heavy, and cold. You unwrap it carefully, expecting a broom or maybe a loaf of dry bread. Instead, it's an axe, iron-bladed, leather-wrapped, and sharp enough to split logs, bones, or egos. You name it immediately. Not because you're sentimental, but because it feels like you should fear it a little less if you treat it like a friend. You choose something appropriately terrifying like wolf biter or mittens. You go outside to try it. Your first swing misses the target completely and nearly takes out the fence. Your second swing hits your own foot. You don't cry. You just sit there, bleeding quietly, wondering if this counts as a rite of passage or just a bad idea with a metal edge. Your uncle bandages your toe and tells you that's how you learn. Then he laughs and offers you a pig's ear. You decline with dignity. The next few weeks are full of trial and error, mostly error. You practice on logs, hay dummies, and occasionally the training post, which now leans slightly from all the off-center hits. Your form improves, your confidence grows, your foot still throbs. You learn how to oil the handle, how to sharpen the blade, and how to swing without twisting your back like an old drunk trying to dance. You train until your hands blister. Then train more until the blisters turn into calluses. Sometimes you train alone, sometimes with your cousin who is 2 years older and insists on spinning in circles before each strike, like he's performing for gods who are definitely not watching. One day you block a blow counterattack and land a clean hit on your opponent's ribs. They drop their weapon and whine something about seeing stars. You don't gloat much that night. You lay your axe beside your bed, not for decoration, not for tradition, but just in case someone breaks in and mistakes you for anything other than a problem. You're not just learning how to fight. You're learning that you were built for it. It starts like most bad ideas with someone opening their mouth. You're at training, holding your axe and minding your own business, when a boy taller than you, cockier than necessary, and freshly smug from winning a sparring match looks at you and says, "Are you sure you want to fight?" You don't want to break a nail. You don't respond, not verbally. Instead, you step into the ring, nod to the instructor, and get ready. The boy smirks. He's already half turned toward his cheering friends. one of whom whispers something that sounds like, "Go easy on her." You don't go easy on him. Your first hit is blocked. Your second grazes his shoulder. Your third lands square in the middle of his chest, knocking the wind out of him with a sound like a dying goose. He recovers quickly, swings wide, misses. You duck, sweep his legs, and take him down into the mud like you've been dreaming about this moment your entire life. He tries to rise. You plant your foot on his chest. Silence. The boys stop cheering. The instructor clears his throat. The goats watching from the edge of the field seem vaguely impressed. You step off, toss your braid back like a battle flag, and walk away without a word. The boy coughs, mutters something that might have been good match, and limps off to tend to his bruised everything, especially his pride. Later, one of the elders pulls you aside. You brace for a scolding. Instead, they grunt and say, "Good footwork." Your mother gives you a nod. Your father just raises one eyebrow, then offers you a larger portion of dried fish at dinner. In Viking culture, this is considered a standing ovation. The boy doesn't look at you for a week. When he finally does, it's with the cautious respect one might give to a bear they've once accidentally poked with a stick. You learned something important that day. You don't have to raise your voice to be heard. You don't have to smile to be liked. And you definitely don't have to apologize when someone else's underestimation lands them in the mud. Victory smells like sweat dirt and slightly overcooked stew, and you'll never forget it. There's no ceremony, no glowing runes, no prophecy, no dramatic lightning bolts splitting the sky, just a cracked shield, a busted lip, and an old warrior grunting, "She's ready." You've spent the last few years fighting, sweating, and earning every single bruise like a badge of honor. Your mornings begin with drills. Your nights end with soreness in muscles you didn't know existed. You can now identify injuries just by how they ache. Sprain, dull, throb, bruise, sharp sting. Ego still bruised from losing to your grandmother in a wrestling match last week. Your braid is longer now, not for style, but for practicality. You tie it back before battle so it doesn't get caught in your helmet or grabbed by someone with poor decision-making skills. Some girls weave in beads. You weave in bits of leather and teeth, not yours, probably. Training has shifted. It's less about whether you can swing an axe and more about whether you can keep your head when someone's trying to take it off. You spar with men now. No one goes easy on you, and you don't expect them to. You've learned that hesitation costs you more than pain. It costs you respect. Your shield arm is stronger than your dominant one. Your fingers are permanently wrapped in leather or scars. You don't win every match, but you never stop swinging. That's what earns their trust. Then one day, during a sparring session, your shield splits. A clean hit from someone twice your size. It cracks down the middle, splinters flying. You toss it aside and keep going, bare-handed, bloodied, and just angry enough to make it interesting. You lose the match, but no one forgets what you did. And that's the day the elders start using your name in a new tone, not as a child to be corrected, but as a fighter to be counted on. No one says you're a Shieldmaiden now, but they no longer glance sideways when you take your place in the shield wall. The braid, the blood, the bruises all earned. You haven't just become a Shieldmaiden. You've become someone others watch when things go wrong to see what you'll do. You finally make it onto a longship. And within the first hour, you deeply regret every choice that brought you here. The deck is slick, the wind is rude, and the rowing bench is basically a wooden insult to your spine. You are packed elbow to elbow with other warriors who smell like old leather, dried sweat and optimism that died 3 days ago. There is no personal space. You shift slightly and your knee touches someone's axe. You shift again and someone sneezes into your hair. A seagull screams overhead as if mocking your life choices. Rowing is not glamorous. It's a full-body punishment disguised as transportation. Your hands blister by mid-morning. By noon, your blisters have blisters. Your palms feel like someone grated them with a cheese grater. You're told this means you're doing it right. There is no relief, only rowing. Your arms are sore, your legs are numb, and your seat is damp in a way that raises existential questions. Every stroke brings you closer to glory, and also probably tendinitis. Meals on board are bleak. Dried fish that taste like the inside of a helmet. Hard bread you could use as a weapon, and water that's technically still water if you're generous. You chew slowly and contemplate mutiny. At night you sleep curled against the side of the ship, using your shield as a blanket and your axe as a pillow. You are gently rocked by the waves, the snoring of the crew, and the lingering suspicion that this entire voyage was planned by someone who hates fun. But despite all this, the pain, the cold, the constant dampness, there's something else, too. The thrill of the open sea, the camaraderie of the crew, the quiet pride that, yes, you belong here. You earned your spot. You're not a tag-along. You're not a mascot. You're a warrior, and warriors row. When the shore appears in the distance, a dark, unfamiliar line on the horizon. Your hands ache, your shoulders burn, and your heart pounds with anticipation. You are exhausted, hungry, mildly seasick, and absolutely ready. Because the boat isn't just a vehicle, it's a crucible. And when you land, you'll be forged. The coastline appears like a secret no one wanted to share. A quiet village, thatched roofs, smoke drifting peacefully from chimneys. Chickens, probably a baker, maybe even a small, hopeful goat. You're going to destroy it. As your longship hits the shore, your stomach drops, not out of guilt, but out of a very real, very physical panic. This is it, your first raid. Real steel, real enemies, real consequences if you trip in the mud and accidentally stab yourself before anyone else gets the chance. You disembark. The beach is soft, which is not helpful. You nearly twist your ankle before even reaching the village. Battle cries echo around you, loud, primal, and mostly improvised. Yours sounds like a goat coughing. It's fine, you're new, you charge. Your first opponent is not a warrior, it's a chicken. It runs at you, aggressively flapping like it has something to prove. You sidestep barely and swing at a man holding a pitchfork. He drops it and runs. You chase him briefly, then remember you're supposed to be looting. You break into a storage hut and find cheese, a lot of cheese. You grab some. It feels like a victory. Outside chaos, shouting fire, someone trips over a bucket. Someone else starts singing for no reason. A warrior next to you yells to Odin and falls into a well. You begin to understand why Viking raids are both feared and deeply confusing. Eventually, the resistance fades. The village is pacified, which is a nice way of saying burned and robbed. Your crew gathers what's useful: silver tools, livestock, a very nice stool. You limp back to the boat with a bruised shin, a stolen spoon, and half a wheel of cheese. It's not what you imagined. No slow-motion glory, no epic speech, just adrenaline noise and the vague realization that you may have screamed for the entire 20 minutes. But you're alive. You stood your ground. You didn't drop your weapon. And even though your tunic smells like goat panic and your ears are still ringing, you feel it, the thing the older warriors talk about in low tones around the fire. That rush, that certainty, that power. You didn't just survive your first raid, you participated. And next time you'll be better. The battle is over. The village is behind you, smoking raided and probably confused about what just happened. You're back on the longship, slumped over your oar, smelling like someone grilled anxiety over a fire made of damp regret. Your tunic is torn, your boots are muddy. There's a cut on your shoulder that you didn't notice until someone else pointed it out. That'll scar nicely, they say, with a grin, as if that's helpful medical advice. Your hands are blistered, your thighs are cramping, and there's a definite chicken feather still stuck to your braid. You're not sure if it's from a fight or lunch. Possibly both. The rowback is quieter. No one shouting, just groaning, chewing, and the occasional sarcastic retelling of who tripped over what. Someone insists they single-handedly fought off 5 armed villagers. You watched him drop his sword in a puddle and cry. No one corrects him. He needs this. Food is passed around: dried fish, hard bread, and most sacred of all, a flask of ale. It's warm. It's bitter. It tastes like triumph and mold. You drink anyway. You expected victory, it to feel louder. But really it feels like bruises and a deep aching satisfaction that settles somewhere between your ribs and your spine. You did the thing. You crossed the sea, held the line, and came back with cheese and a story. By nightfall, you're back at camp. The fire crackles. The meat sizzles. Someone's already asleep, snoring directly into their helmet. You sit cross-legged with your fellow warriors, staring into the flames like you're waiting for the gods to say something. No gods speak. But someone passes you a roasted turnip, which is almost the same thing. There's laughter now. The low, worn-out kind that comes from people who survived something stupid together. You laugh too, not because it was funny, but because it happened, and you were there, and you didn't die. As you settle in for sleep, curled up with your shield and your steel-dented helmet, you know this is the first of many raids, the first of many aches. But for tonight, you rest. You earned it. Raiding season ends with the cold, and so does your brief flirtation with glory. You return home expecting rest, maybe even praise. What you get is winter. Full-blown, nose-biting, morale-destroying Viking winter. The fjord is iced over. The longship is dragged inland and flipped upside down like a retired dragon. You pack away your armor knowing full well that your off-season is just survival on hard mode. The chores double. The daylight vanishes. Your motivation follows. You chop firewood until your fingers go numb. You haul frozen buckets of water from an icy stream that stares back at you like it wants you dead. The goats who hate you on a spiritual level now rely on you for warmth and hay. You don't like them, but you respect their stubbornness. They return the favor by screaming at 300 a.m. The food situation deteriorates immediately. Fresh meat becomes a distant memory. You now live on smoked fish, dried fish, and fish pickled in something that might also be cleaning vinegar. For variety, there's turnip mash. It doesn't help. You eat in silence, bundled in every layer you own. You smell like wool damp fur and regret. Your hair hasn't been fully dry in weeks. Your toes feel like strangers. Your shield collects dust. You polish it anyway, mostly to remember what happiness looked like. Your family is around constantly, too constantly. The longhouse is crowded, smoky, and filled with arguments about who keeps moving the firewood and why the stew smells like socks. You train outside in the snow just to get away, even if your fingers freeze to the sword hilt. And yet something changes. You get stronger, you get colder emotionally and physically. You start to appreciate silence. You stop noticing the smell of pickled everything. You endure. One morning, the snow begins to melt. You hear the first bird song in months. A shrill little thing that sounds like hope and a possible migraine. You walk to the fjord. The ice is cracking. Spring is coming. Raiding season will return, and when it does, you'll be ready, angry, underfed, and itching for action. Winter tried. It didn't win. You survive winter just barely. Your reward, marriage proposals. They begin innocently enough. A local farmer's son shows up with a bundle of dried fish and a hopeful grin. He tells you that you'd make a strong wife. You respond by asking how well he can swing an axe. He says he doesn't do weapons. You say you don't do men who can't hold a blade. He leaves quickly. The next one tries harder. He brings you a gift, a comb carved from antler. You accept it politely, then use it to scratch your hound behind the ears. He never returns. Soon it becomes a trend, young men arriving with tokens and nervous energy, hoping to tame the village's most eligible Shieldmaiden. The problem is you don't want taming. You want raiding, sparring, and maybe the occasional feast where no one talks about goats. Your aunt says you should consider settling down. You tell her you'll settle down when your axe rusts. She mutters something about dying alone. You counter with dying gloriously, which frankly sounds better. One particularly bold suitor challenges you to a duel. He says it's tradition. You agree. He gets a bruise shaped like your shield and learns a valuable lesson about underestimating women who train in the snow for fun. Eventually, the offers stop. Word spreads. You're not interested, not in being someone's wife, not in cook and stew every night, and definitely not in arguing about who gets the good fur blanket. You want more and less all at once. More battle, less small talk, more glory, less goats. To be clear, you're not against love. You've just never seen anyone who makes your heart beat faster than a war drum. And until you do, you're perfectly fine sharpening your axe in peace. Some of the village girls whisper that you're too proud. Some of the village boys whisper that they're terrified. Both are correct. You spend your evenings on the training field instead of weaving. You polish your blade instead of planning a wedding. And you sleep with your axe beside you, not out of loneliness, but because it's the only companion that never talks back. You've fought before. Raids, skirmishes, petty clan feuds over goats and insults. But this is war. It starts before dawn with the kind of silence that feels like the earth holding its breath. The enemy is no distant village of scared farmers. These are warriors armored, and already sharpening their blades with your name in mind. You don't get a stirring speech, just your chieftain muttering, "Don't die, stupid," and walking off to tie his boots. You nod. That sounds about right. You stand in the shield wall shoulder to shoulder with people you've fought beside and occasionally insulted around the cooking fire. Your shield feels heavier today, so does your breathing. Someone nearby throws up, someone else sings, and then it begins. The first clash is chaos. Shield slam, sword scream, someone dies. Probably more than one someone. You block, swing, duck, stab, repeat. It's not strategy, it's survival at the speed of panic. Your shield cracks, you switch to your axe breaks. You pick up a spear that's been dropped by a man who no longer needs it. You lose track of time. You forget what language you're shouting in. You only know your feet hurt, and your arms don't stop moving. At some point, you fall, not dramatically, just a stumble. You land in the mud next to a corpse that looks a lot like someone you knew. You can't hear anything but the thudding of your heart and the distant roar of battle. A shadow looms. You roll. A blade misses you by a hair. You grab a rock. You use it. It works somehow. When it's over, truly over, the field is quiet again. Except now it's not earth holding its breath. It's the dead who won't breathe again. You sit there covered in blood that isn't entirely yours, trying to remember how to feel things like fear or pride or even hunger. A bird lands nearby and immediately regrets it. You survived. You shouldn't have, but you did. And when someone asked you how, you'll shrug and say, "Didn't have anything better to do," which is true, but also not the whole story. After the battle, things change. You're still your same boots, same axe, same mysterious stew stain on your cloak that refuses to leave. But people look at you differently now, not just like a fighter, like a story. Someone starts calling you the one who wouldn't die. Another calls you Goat Hammer, which is less flattering, but gains traction because of one unfortunate incident involving a fleeing enemy and a nearby goat. You don't bother correcting them, let them talk. The truth is messier and less interesting. When you walk through the village now, people move. Not away, just aside, like they're not sure if you're going to ask for help or issue a challenge. You nod politely. They nod back very cautiously. Children whisper your name and dare each other to poke your shield while you're not looking. They never succeed. You once caught a boy mid-sneak and handed him your axe. He froze. You said nothing. He returned it and fled. You haven't seen him since, smart kid. Warriors now ask for your opinion before a raid. Not just out of politeness, but because you've been there, done that, and came back with more scars than excuses. You're no longer that loud girl who hits hard. You're a veteran, a problem solver, a cautionary tale with a great arm swing. Strangers know your name, or at least something close to it. A visiting merchant bows too deeply and calls you mistress of blades. You correct him by spitting into a bucket and asking if he brought better cheese this time. He nods so quickly he almost faints. At night around the fire. You hear your own story told back to you, slightly wrong, heavily dramatized, and with new details involving thunder, a glowing raven, and a berserker kiss. You say nothing. It's funnier that way. You didn't ask for face. You certainly didn't smile for it. But now that it's here, you carry it like your shield, well worn, slightly dented, and always ready. You used to wonder if people would take you seriously. Now, you wonder if they'll stop shaking long enough to actually speak. You're not the youngest anymore. There's a new crop of wide-eyed girls, tying their braids too tight, gripping their axes too loose, and talking too loud about what they'll do in battle. You see yourself in them, but with less bruising and more optimism. They watch you closely, not like a hero, more like a storm that could start swinging at any moment. You've earned that. Your joints ache in the mornings. Your sword wrist pops when it's cold. You have a scar across your ribs that itches whenever it's about to snow. You don't heal as fast as you used to, and when you do, the pain lingers like an old drinking buddy who doesn't know when to leave. But you're not softer. You're just harder in the right places. You train less to prove something and more to stay sharp. You eat slower, sleep lighter. Speak only when there's something worth saying, which means half the longhouse still hasn't heard your voice. When younger Shieldmaidens ask how to win their first fight, you say, "Don't die." When they ask how to make someone respect them, you say, "Break their nose, then help them up." And when they ask when it stops being terrifying, you tell the truth, it doesn't. You just get better at pretending. You still raid, though not as often. Now, when you do, people check to see if you're coming. If you are, they breathe easier. If you're not, they check their armor twice. Your axe is worn, the handle wrapped in new leather, the blade notched, but still sharp. It's seen more than most warriors. It's outlived all your suitors. You've thought about hanging it up. But then someone says something stupid or a threat appears on the horizon, and you remember you're not done. You never wanted to be legendary. You just wanted to fight, to survive, to carve your place in a world that didn't think you should have one. And somehow through blood fire and sheer refusal to quit you did. You're not just a shield maiden, you're a warning. And the next time someone asks if you still fight, you'll smile just a little and say, only when it's necessary. And sometimes just for fun. Now, let the hum of the fan and the distant whispers of the Norse winds carry you deeper into rest. The echoes of axe on shield, the crackle of the hearth fire, and the quiet pride of a life well lived now merge into the rhythm of your own breath. You are safe. You are held by the stories of old. Drift now into the deep, nourishing sleep you deserve.